It's the second time me trying to record this video. My battery died. So, I have not done a video on my channel in a while, and I'm gonna keep this kind of short and simple, the explanation. I've kind of felt a call to do this for a little bit, called to share my wisdom, if you want to say. I am by no means an expert on anything that I'm going to tell you right now. And honestly, I'm in a season where I have no idea what's next. I'm in a season of trusting that God has a plan for me, regardless of what I feel. That's kind of what this video is about. This video is about trusting God. This video is about being in a situation where you have no choice, where there is maybe something that you want, but God is not giving it to you. And maybe you're like me, and maybe you've asked for signs. You've said, hey, God, I really want a sign to know if this is going to work and if this is going to go in my favor. And God is, silent. Maybe you're in a season like that right now. And again, I'm gonna preface this and say, I am by no means an expert. I am by no means sitting here and being like, everything is going to work out exactly how you want it to work out. Because in my situation, I have no idea if it's going to work out exactly how I want. That would be great, but God may have something else planned for me. I've been through a lot of stuff in the last couple years. I won't get into it very deep. Maybe I will eventually. But in all of these seasons where I've gone through something hard, I've always had something that pulled me out. I've never had a long period of time where I have trusted God and said, God, whatever you have planned for me, I'm here for it, and I accept what you have planned for me. I have never had a season like that. There has always been something or someone who has pulled me out of that season. And then instead of focusing purely on God in that season, now God is kind of over here and I'm focused on this now. And I'm like, God, you really don't even matter anymore. I've got this, and this is all I want right now. This is all I care about. I've had the same story brought up to me 3 times today. And that's kind of why I'm making this video. I've kind of felt a call to do this already. I had a counseling appointment today and I said, kind of, felt like maybe I should share some of this stuff. I made a video last night, and I don't think that one's ever going to get posted, but I made a video kind of saying, hey, I'm going to kind of document my spiritual journey and my journey on trusting God and hoping in only God alone. And I kind of said, oh, maybe I should post these things. After today, I had somebody bring up the same story 3 times, and it was about the Israelites in the wilderness and the manna, and getting only enough manna for the day, just enough to get through the day. And if they tried to take any more, it would spoil by the next day. And I actually highlighted some of the verses because I wanted to talk about it on here. And this is the first thing I'll bring up. You may be coming out of a season where you feel like almost, even in that, if that season wasn't great and you honestly wanted to be out of that season as well. But now, God has taken you out of that situation that you were in and placed you in, quote, a wilderness season where you have no idea where you're going. You have no idea what's happening. And all you're thinking is, God, what are you doing? And almost to the point where you feel like almost going back into that situation would be better than what you're dealing with right now. My situation is similar, but not exactly the same. There's a lot more depth to that. So let's read this part. This is Exodus 16, verse 1 through 3. It says, and the whole community of Israel set out from Elim and journeyed into the wilderness of Sin, between Elim and Mount Sinai. They arrived there on the 15th day of the 2nd month, 1 month after leaving the land of Egypt. There, too, the whole community of Israel complained about Moses and Aaron. If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt, they moaned. There we sat around pots filled with meat and ate all the bread we wanted. But now you have brought us into this wilderness to starve us all to death. At this point, they know there's a promised land. There's a promised land on the other side. And all they can think about is, oh, we're starving. We can't, we want to go back to Egypt where they were whipped and tortured and worked 7 days a week. Just like it was horrible. And instead of trusting God and trusting the wilderness has a purpose in it, and you just got to get to the other side of that, they complain and they complain and they complain. And this is what I was saying before about the manna and giving them only enough for what they needed. This is verse 17 through 18. So the people of Israel did as they were told. Some gathered a lot, some only a little. But when they measured it out, everyone had just enough. Those who gathered a lot had nothing left over, and those who gathered only a little had enough. Each family had just what it needed. Sometimes God is going to give you just what you need to get throughout the day. You may want more. I can tell you what right now, I want more. I don't know what the end of this season looks like. I don't know what my promised land is for the end of the season that I'm in right now. I've had a lot of pain for the last couple years, and I sit there a lot of the time and say, God, why? Why are you doing this? Sometimes God is going to put you in a situation where you have just enough to survive. And he does this to test us, to prune us for what he's preparing us for. Now, this may be something that you've heard a million times. This may be something you're just hearing now today. Like I've said, I'm not an expert. I'm not sitting here and saying that I've been through my wilderness season and now my life is awesome. Right now, I'm at a pretty low point in my life. I'd say probably the lowest. But in this lowest point of my life, I have never in my life been closer to God. I went to church yesterday. I went to a church that's an hour away from me. I've been there once before and it's great, but I just hadn't gone back yet. So I drove all the way there. I haven't been to church in a little while because church has been a little bit painful for me because it reminds me of the situation that I'm dealing with right now. So I decided to go to this church, and I walked into there, and worship music has been really painful because it reminds me of the thing that I've lost. Again, I don't want to get into exactly what I'm going through. I don't want to explain my whole situation quite yet. Worship music was tied around this thing that I lost. So I go in there, and I'm going worship is starting, and this church, mind you, worship is about 45 minutes long at this church. Very, very long, very spontaneous, spirit-led. Awesome, honestly, really great, just super intimate worship, just like nothing I've really seen before. And I get into worship, and they're playing these songs, and I'm like, oh, I messed up going here. Like, this is too painful for me. Why am I here? Just major anxiety. About 5 minutes into worship, I'm on the floor sobbing. And I can tell you in that moment, there's never a moment in your life that you're going to feel closer to God than when you're sobbing on the floor in church. And there are a lot of people who cry during worship because they're just so overly grateful and everything. I was crying because I was completely broken, but at the same time it was such a freeing, and I felt that God was almost just wrapping his arms around me in that moment. And actually I'm going to bring out my phone. I actually have a note that I've wrote down that is a bunch of verses that I pray over my fear and anxiety and fear of what the future looks like. I just pray it over myself, and I read them when I feel anxious. And yesterday I was in service, and there was worship and whatever, and I got up because my knees hurt, and I sat on the chair, and I had the urge to open up my Bible to Psalm 91. And I think I had actually read Psalm 91 recently, but I didn't remember what it was. I just knew that Psalm 91, that's what my brain was telling me, and that's whatever was telling me. And I was like, okay, maybe it's God. And, a lot of times, I'm sure as a Christian, everybody has done this once. They're like, okay, God, where do you want me to go today? And they just open up their Bible, and 90% of the time, it's like some random verse that has nothing to do with the situation that you're in right now. And you're like, well, I don't know what you're trying to say to me, God. Maybe you're just trying to reveal something to me later, but in this situation, I open up to Psalm 91, and I read. This is 1-4. Those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of the Almighty. This I declare about the Lord. He alone is my refuge, my place of safety. He is my God, and I trust him. For he will rescue you from every trap and protect you from deadly disease. He will cover you with his feathers. He will shelter you with his wings. His faithful promises are your armor and protection. Like, reading that, sobbing still, and then I read this, and of course I'm sobbing even more now because I'm literally laying on the floor being like, God, I don't know what you're doing. I'm trying so hard to trust you. Like, I give up. Like, I give up on trying to, will this situation back into existence, and will this thing that I want back into my life. And I have kind of let go of it, but and it's still an ongoing battle every day, to release this thing that I really want to the Lord. But I just sitting on the floor, kneeling on the floor and crying and being like, God, what are you doing? I'm so broken. I want this thing back so bad. And just, this is so hard. And opening up to that was, just no words, speechless. Just now I'm crying even more. I'm like, God is really speaking to me in this moment. And Nothing really else happened through the service, but God hears you. I want you to know, take encouragement from this. God hears you. He knows. It says in his word, it says he records every tear in his book. God knows. God sees your tears. He sees my tears. I don't know what this season's going to bring. Is it going to be in my favor? It could not be. That's what we're looking like right now. We're looking like life is headed in a direction I never thought it would lead. But sometimes God puts you in a situation where you have no choice but to trust him and to say, God, I can't control this situation. I'm going to hand it to you. I'm going to give this to you. I'm releasing this and letting this go. And that right there is when you experience breakthrough. Because although I can say right now that I'm still very broken and I'm still healing and this sucks, it's such a freeing feeling giving it to God. Saying, God, you know the plans. You know the plans you have for my life. They are to prosper and not for disaster, and they are plans to give me a future and a hope. To really believe that, to really stand on that, and that is your rock every day. You believe that with your whole heart. That is where true freedom comes. All that to say, you may not like the season that you're in. You may feel that you've been going through pain for so long. But ask yourself this: have you trusted? Have you trusted God in those seasons? Have you had a chance actually to fully let go of everything that you want, everything that you desire, and say, God, I give it all to you, and I give you the desires of my heart, and you can do whatever you want with that. Psalm 37, verse 3 through 5. Trust in the Lord and do good, then you will live safely in the land and prosper. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires. Commit everything you do to the Lord. Trust him, and he will help you. Having a season like the season I'm going through right now, where I have to completely let go and trust God. I have no choice. I can't hold on to this thing that I had. It's very uncertain. I don't know what's going on with this situation. Where I have to basically say, God, I have no idea what you're doing right now. I have no idea what your plan is for this, but I trust you. And whatever happens, your plan is good. That's a blessing in itself. I sure don't believe it sometimes. I have a really hard time believing that this is a blessing sometimes. A lot of the time I do. I sit here and I'm like, I'm being punished right now for the ways I've acted. I'm being punished. And I have to remember, God is not a punishing God. God is a gracious God, but God will test you. And you have two options. You either say, God, I give it all to you, or you go off in the wrong direction, which if you go off in the wrong direction, you're only going to destroy your life even more. I've had multiple seasons where I've had to trust God. I've said, hey, I give this all to you. But I've always had something that's pulled me out of that season sooner than I should have been pulled out of that season. And now, after going through multiple seasons of being pulled out of that season that I was in, I have a season where, yeah, this is it. You either trust me or you don't. That's really it. And God's not sitting there and he's not being like, oh, you didn't trust me in this, so I'm punishing you right now. But God is pruning you. He's preparing you. If you're sitting there and you want a wife and you want a family and you want this job, or you want this leadership, whatever it may be, if you're in this season of waiting and preparation, you're being prepared, you're being pruned. Take delight in that. Take encouragement from that. I have to speak that to myself every single day. Take encouragement. Know that if you're in a season of wilderness like this, God is pruning you and preparing you for something. Take delight in the fact that there is a promised land at the end. It's not all wilderness. God doesn't want you to suffer. He doesn't sit there and take delight in your pain. God is crying with you. God knows your pain. God knows that you're suffering. God records every tear in his book. God knows. So I leave it with this. I leave you guys with this. Trust him, for he knows the plans he has for you, and they were good. And we're in this together. You're not alone. Find a community. Find people around you that you can lean on. That is the most important thing you can do in this season. If you isolate yourself, you will only destroy yourself even more. I know that from personal experience. I am barely in my house. I'm always out doing something with someone because I cannot be in my house. All I do is think about what I've lost. God is preparing you. So be expectant, be ready. Be expectant for something to come and be ready to receive that. And do everything that you can and pray that God will prepare you in the best way possible for whatever is next. Whether that is exactly what you want, that thing that you want or that you lost, it may come back. You may just not be ready for that thing yet. But it may not. But whatever it is, rest in the fact that God is good. And this is advice that I need to take myself, and I am trying my absolute hardest to do. Take encouragement for that. Know that the Lord is good. Take delight in him, and he will give you your heart's desires. If God has put a desire on your heart, there's a reason for that. But also pray, hey, if this desire is not from you, remove it from my life. Say, God, I don't want this desire if it's not from you. Gone. And he will remove it. Now, I have prayed this prayer a few times with my situation. The desire is not from you, God. Remove it. Gone. My desire has only grown. I don't know if that means anything. I can't tell you. I'm still confused, and I'm very uncertain. And God is not the author of confusion. So I'm assuming that God has not given me my sign yet. And maybe he won't for a long time, but he will reveal to you in his timing what he wants you to do. This is a video I'm not putting hashtags on. I'm not gonna share it all over social media because frankly, I deleted all social media actually. So I can't, and I'm not downloading it back for a long time. I'm not doing this to get views. I'm not doing this to gain a following. I'm not doing any of it. I just pray. I pray that whoever views this really needs to hear this and really needs to be encouraged and needs somebody who's going through something similar. We're in this together. I'm at a really low point, but I am very close with God, and that alone is a blessing. So be encouraged today. I'm going to continue to make videos like this. I'm not sure how often, but be encouraged today and know that God loves you and he has a plan for you as well as he does for me. We're in this together. See you later.